At 3:47 in the morning, my phone vibrated once against the nightstand, just once, not the frantic staccato of an emergency but a single pulse of light in the darkness of a hotel room in Newark, New Jersey. He had been awake for 3 hours already, staring at the ceiling and replaying the conversation I had with my son 2 days earlier, the one where he told me he was dissolving the family business and the one where he said, "Dad, you have been retired for 5 years, it is time to let go." I did not let go, I could not, because the business was my name, my father's name, and my grandfather's name before that, for generations of Llewellyn construction stamped into the foundations of half the buildings in this city, and my son, my only son, was preparing to sell it to a conglomerate that would strip the name off the trucks and turn 200 years of family legacy into a footnote in a quarterly earnings report. But the vibration on the nightstand was not about the business, I did not know that yet. I picked up the phone and the screen was too bright in the darkness of the room, and I squinted against it, waiting for my eyes to adjust, and the notification was a text message from my wife, Eleanor, 3 words with no preamble, no punctuation, just 3 words typed with the particular urgency of someone who did not have time to construct a sentence. Don't call me. Home. I stared at the screen for 3 full seconds, my brain processed the words individually, arranged them in order, and then refused to assign meaning to them because Eleanor had never told me not to come home in 47 years of marriage. Not once, not during arguments, not during the difficult years, not during the season when our daughter was in and out of rehabilitation and the house felt like a war zone, she had never, not once, closed the door on me. He called her and the phone rang 6 times, then her voicemail picked up. Her voice was the same voice she had recorded on a Tuesday afternoon in 1998 when voicemail was still a novelty and she had laughed at herself for not knowing what to say. "You have reached Eleanor Llewellyn. Leave a message and I will call you back." I left a message and my voice was steady because that is what 40 years as a construction foreman taught me. The voice is the last thing to go. "Eji, call me back, please." I called my daughter, Sarah, and there was no answer, straight to voicemail, and I called my son, Matthew, and the phone rang twice, then someone picked up, but there was only silence on the other end, breathing, the slow deliberate breathing of someone who was listening but not speaking, and I said, "Matthew, is that you?" and the line went dead. He was out of bed before I made a conscious decision to move. My body had taken over the way bodies do when the brain stalls out and something older, something more primal, steps in to handle the driving, and I pulled on the same jeans I had worn to the job site yesterday, the same flannel shirt, the same boots by the door, and my hands were not trembling yet but they were close. I could feel the tremor building at the edges of my fingers, the particular fine vibration that comes before adrenaline fully engages. He did not pack, I did not check out, I grabbed my keys and walked to the door of the hotel room, and then I stopped because there was something I had to do first, something I should have done 2 days ago when Matthew first told me about the sale, something I had been too proud, too stubborn, too caught up in my own sense of betrayal to do. He sat down on the edge of the bed, I opened my contacts and scrolled past the names I had known for 40 years, past the subcontractors and the suppliers and the architects, past the men who had worked for me and the men I had worked for. And I found a name I had not called in 5 years, Arthur Chun, my lawyer, the man who had drawn up the original partnership agreement when I had brought Matthew into the business, the man who had advised me against retirement, the man I had stopped calling. Because he had been right about everything and I had not wanted to admit that. The phone rang 3 times and Arthur picked up. His voice was the voice of a man who had been woken at 3:49 in the morning and had already decided not to be annoyed about it. "Frank, what is wrong?" He said, "I need you to listen to me, Arthur. I need you to draw up papers to block the sale. I need them filed tomorrow morning, first thing, before Matthew can sign anything." Arthur was silent for a moment. I could hear him breathing, the slow deliberate breathing of a man processing information, and he said, "Frank, You signed over control of the business 5 years ago. You do not have standing to block anything. Matthew owns 60% of the shares, you own the rest, but he has majority control, and there is nothing I can file that would stop him from selling. I closed my eyes and the ceiling of the hotel room swam above me, and I said, then find something, Arthur, find something. I do not care what it takes, I do not care what it costs, just find something. Arthur was quiet for another moment and then he said, there might be one thing. The original partnership agreement had a clause about family ownership, a stipulation that the business could not be sold to an outside entity without the consent of all living descendants of the founder, your grandfather. That clause was drafted to prevent exactly this situation, but I am not sure it is enforceable, and I am not sure it survived the restructuring we did in 2010. I said, find out, Arthur, I need to know by morning. He said, I will call you by 6, Frank, try to get some sleep, and he hung up. He did not try to get some sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed in the darkness of the hotel room and I stared at the wall and I thought about my grandfather. The man who had started Llewellyn Construction with a single truck and a handshake in 1922, the man who had built this city block by block, the man who had told me on his deathbed that the business was not just about money. It was about legacy, it was about the name, it was about showing up every day and doing honest work and leaving something behind that matter. He thought about my father, the man who had inherited that legacy and expanded it, the man who had taught me how to read blueprints and how to negotiate contracts and how to tell the difference between a man who was telling the truth and a man who was trying to sell you something. I thought about Matthew, my son, who had grown up on job sites and had learned the business from the ground up, who had taken over the company 5 years ago with such promise, such enthusiasm, such a clear vision for the future, and who had somehow, somewhere along the way, lost sight of what the business actually meant. He thought about Eleanor, my wife of 47 years, the woman who had never told me not to come home, the woman who had sent me 3 words in the middle of the night and then stopped answering her phone. He called her again, and again, and again, and each time her voicemail picked up and each time I heard her recorded voice, the voice from 1998, the voice that had been recorded when we were still young enough to laugh at voicemail, and I felt something tight and cold and heavy settle in my chest, something that felt like the moment before a building gives way. The moment when you know the load is too much and the structure is about to fail and there is nothing you can do to stop it. At 4:15 pulgadas the morning, I could not sit still any longer. I stood up and I walked to the window of the hotel room and I looked out at the city of Newark spread out below me, the lights of the airport in the distance, the glow of the Manhattan skyline beyond, and I thought about the 40-mile drive back to Long Island, the drive that would take me through the city and across the bridge and into the neighborhood where I had lived for 40 years, the house where Eleanor was not answering her phone. The house where something had happened and I did not know what. He picked up my keys and I walked out of the hotel room and I did not look back. The parking lot of the hotel was empty at 4:18 pulgadas the morning. My truck was the only thing moving when I backed out of the space, and I pointed it toward the turnpike and I drove. I drove faster than I should have, faster than the speed limit allowed, faster than the rain-slicked roads could safely handle, because there is a certain kind of speed that is not about time, it is about momentum. It is about the feeling of movement when everything else in your life has stopped moving and you need to feel like you are going somewhere even if you are not sure where that somewhere is. I called Eleanor again while I was driving, no answer. I called Sarah again, no answer. I called Matthew again and this time he answered. His voice was flat and tired and I said, Matthew, where is your mother? And he said, she is at the house. Dad, she is fine, she is not hurt. He said, then why is she not answering her phone? Why did she tell me not to come home? And Matthew was silent for a long moment and then he said, Dad, there is something I need to tell you, something I should have told you 2 days ago when we had our conversation about the business, but I did not know how to say it. I did not know how to tell you that I have made a mistake. He gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white and I said, "What kind of mistake, Matthew?" And he said, "I signed a contract, Dad. I signed a contract with the conglomerate, but I did not read it carefully. I did not have Arthur look at it because I was in a hurry, because I thought I knew what I was doing, because I wanted to prove to you that I could handle the business without your help, and the contract, Dad, the contract has a clause that says if the sale falls through, they are entitled to everything, the business, the properties, the equipment, everything, they are entitled to everything, and I have been trying to find a way out of it for 2 days, and I cannot, and I called Mom tonight because I did not know what else to do, and she told me to give her some time. She told me she would think of something. She told me not to call you until she had a plan, but Dad, I do not think she has a plan. I think she is sitting in that house alone and she is trying to figure out how to protect all of us from what I have done." The road blurred in front of me, the rain was coming down harder now, and I said, "Matthew, I am going to ask you one question and I need you to answer me honestly. Did you know about the clause before you signed the contract?" And Matthew said, "I did not, Dad, I swear, I did not read it, I just signed it. I was so sure, so cocky, so convinced that I knew what I was doing, and I did not read it, and now we might lose everything, everything you built, everything Grandpa built, everything Great-Grandpa built, and I do not know how to fix it." I said, "Matthew, listen to me very carefully. I am going to hang up now and I am going to drive home and I am going to talk to your mother, and when I get there, I want you to stay where you are. I want you to stay away from the house. And I want you to wait for my call. Do you understand?" And Matthew said, "I understand, Dad," and I hung up. He drove the rest of the way in silence, no radio, no phone, just the sound of the rain on the roof of the truck and the wipers sweeping across the windshield and the particular silence of a man who is trying to hold on to something that is slipping away from him. The bridge across the river was empty at 4:50 pulgadas the morning, the lights of the city behind me and the lights of the island ahead of me, and I crossed over with the rain coming down sideways and the wind pushing the truck toward the guardrail. And I held the wheel steady the way I had held everything steady for 40 years, the way I had held the company steady during recessions, the way I had held my family steady during the difficult years, the way I had held myself steady when everything around me was falling apart. He turned onto our street at 5:03 in the morning and I stopped the truck in the middle of the road because there were too many lights on our block for 5:03 in the morning, police cars at angles, an ambulance in the driveway, crime scene tape stretched across the porch, the yellow kind, the kind you see on the news, stretched across the porch where Eleanor drinks her coffee on Saturday mornings, yellow tape across my porch. He sat in the truck for 10 seconds that felt like 10 hours and then I put it in park and opened the door and stepped out into the rain and my legs carried me toward the house without any input from me whatsoever, carrying me toward the lights, toward whatever had happened in the hours I spent sitting in a hotel room in Newark, while my phone sat on the nightstand and my wife sent me 3 words and I did not understand them. A uniformed officer stepped into my path, young, maybe 30 years old, with the careful posture of someone who had been standing outside in the rain for hours and was running on coffee and adrenaline, and he said, "Sir, you cannot go any further," and I said, "That is my house, I am Frank Llewellyn, I am the husband, where is my wife?" The officer turned his head slightly, a small movement toward a detective standing on the porch, and the detective, a woman in her 50s with the kind of steady eyes that come from working enough crime scenes to know that the person in front of you needs information more than he needs protocol, walked down the steps toward me and said, "Mr. Llewellyn, your wife is safe, she is inside, she is not injured, but you need to understand that a lot has happened here tonight, and we are still trying to piece together exactly what that was." He walked past the crime scene tape, ducking under it the way you duck under anything that is in your path when you are moving towards something you need, and I stepped over the threshold of my house and I stopped because the living room was filled with evidence markers, the yellow number triangles that tell a story, and the story they told was a story of struggle, Of something that had been broken and something that had been taken and something that had been left behind. Eleanor was sitting on the couch with a blanket around her shoulders and a cup of tea on the cushion beside her that she had clearly not touched. She was wearing her favorite cardigan, the one with the frayed left cuff, and her hair was loose around her face and she looked. The word that came to me was exhausted, not broken, not frightened, just emptied out the way a person looks when they have spent every reserve they have and are now running on something below empty, something I do not have. I named 4. She saw me in the doorway and her face broke open like a fault line giving way, and she said my name, Frank, and her voice fractured on that one syllable, but it contained everything, and she was up off the couch before I could reach her. The blanket falling to the floor, crossing the room with her arms already reaching, and she slammed into my chest with a force that staggered me back half a step, both arms locked around my ribs, her face pressed against my neck, and she was shaking, hair. Whole body shaking with the kind of tremors that come after adrenaline leaves, when the body finally gets the news that it is over and does not know what to do with that information. I held her and I said, I have got you, I am right here, I am not going anywhere, and she said against my chest, I am so sorry, Frank, I am so sorry I called you, I should not have called you, I thought I could handle it, I thought I could keep you out of it, but I could not do it alone. He pulled back and I looked at her face and I said, Eje, what happened? And she said, the contract, Frank, the one Matthew signed, the one with the penalty clause, I found out about it 2 days ago. Matthew told me because he was scared, because he did not know what to do, and I told him I would handle it. I told him I would find a way, and I spent all day yesterday trying to find a way out of it, trying to find a loophole, trying to find something, anything, that would stop the sale and protect the business, and tonight, I was sitting at the kitchen table with all the documents spread out in front of me, and I was so focused, so intent, that I did not hear them come in through the back door. I did not hear them until they were already in the hallway. And then I looked up and there were 2 men standing there, and one of them was holding a folder and the other one was holding a knife, and they said, Mrs. Llewellyn, we need you to sign something. He felt the cable in my chest pull so tight I could not breathe, and I said, what did they want you to sign, Eje? And she said, a document, Frank, a document that would transfer ownership of the business to the conglomerate immediately, bypassing the contract entirely. A document that would make everything Matthew did look like it was done with your approval. A document that would give them everything they wanted and leave us with nothing, and I refused. I told them I would not sign it, and they did not like that. Frank, they did not like that at all, and that is when the struggle started, that is when I reached for my phone, that is when one of them grabbed it and threw it across the room, and that is when the other one, the one with the knife, he said, Mrs. Llewellyn, you are going to sign this document, or we are going to make you sign it, and I looked at him and I said, you are going to have to kill me first, because I thought, Frank, I thought if I signed it, if I gave them what they wanted, everything you built, everything your father built, everything your grandfather built, it would all be gone, and I could not let that happen, I could not let them take it from you. He held her so tightly I could feel her ribs under my arms, and I said, Eje, what happened, how did they stop? And she said, the police, Frank, I had called them before they came in, I had called them when I started to suspect something was wrong. I told them I was going to stay in the house and I was going to try to negotiate. But I told them to surround the block and wait for my signal. I told them I would send a text message if I needed them, and when the 2 men came in, I pressed the emergency button on my phone, the one that sends the GPS signal, and I pressed it before they grabbed the phone. And the police, Frank, they were here within minutes. They were in the house within minutes, and the 2 men, they are in custody now, they are not going anywhere, but I am so sorry, Frank, I am so sorry you had to come home to this. I am so sorry I told you not to come home. I was just trying to protect you, I was just trying to keep you away from this. He sat down on the couch with her and I held her while she cried, and I thought about the 47 years we had been married, about the things she had done for me, the sacrifices she had made, the way she had always been the steady one, the calm one, the one who held everything together when everything else was falling apart. And I thought about how I had never really understood what that cost her, how I had never really understood the weight she carried, how I had never really understood that she was not just my wife, she was my partner, my equal, the foundation upon which everything I had ever built was resting. He thought about Matthew, my son, who had made a terrible mistake, who had signed a contract without reading it, who had put everything at risk because he was too proud, too stubborn, too eager to prove himself. And I thought about how I had done the same thing, how I had been too proud to call Arthur Chen, how I had been too stubborn to ask for help, how I had been so eager to protect my legacy that I had not seen the danger that was coming from inside my own family. He thought about the two men who had come through my back door with a knife and a folder, the men who had threatened my wife, the men who had tried to take everything I had built, and I thought about who had sent them, who had known about the contract, who had known about the clause, who had known that Eleanor would be sitting at the kitchen table with the documents, who had known exactly where to strike and when, and I realized that this was not just about the business, this was not just about the sale, this was about something deeper, something darker, something that had been brewing for years and had finally come to a head. The detective came into the living room and she said, Mr. Llewellyn, we need to talk to you about what happened tonight. We have the two men in custody and they are talking, and what they are saying is going to change a lot of things, for you, for your family, for the business, and I need you to sit down, Mr. Llewellyn, I need you to sit down and listen to what I have to say. He sat down and Eleanor sat beside me and she took my hand and she held it tightly, her fingers cold and trembling but her grip steady, and the detective said, Mr. Llewellyn, the two men we have in custody are not professionals, they are not part of any organized effort, they are two desperate men who were hired by someone close to you, someone who knew your family intimately, someone who knew about the contract and the clause and the fact that your wife would be alone in the house tonight, someone who wanted to see your family destroyed. He looked at the detective and I said, who? And she said, we do not have a name yet, Mr. Llewellyn, but the two men have given us a description, and the description matches someone you know, someone your family has trusted for years, someone who has been sitting at your holiday table, someone who has been asking questions about the business, someone who has been gathering information, someone who has been waiting for the right moment to strike. He felt the blood drain from my face and I said, Matthew, my son Matthew, and the detective shook her head and said, no, Mr. Llewellyn, your son is not the one who hired these men, your son is the one who was set up, your son is the one who was manipulated into signing the contract, your son is the one who was used as a pawn in a much larger game. The person who hired these men, Mr. Llewellyn, the person who wanted to see your family destroyed, is someone you have trusted, someone you have relied on, someone you have never suspected of anything, and I am sorry to have to tell you this, Mr. Llewellyn, but the description, the information the two men have provided, points to your daughter, Sarah. The room tilted, the walls leaned in, the floor shifted underneath me, and I said, Sarah, my daughter, Sarah would never do something like this, Sarah would never hire men to threaten her mother, Sarah would never try to destroy the family business, Sarah would never do any of this. You are wrong, you have to be wrong. The detective looked at me with the steady, patient eyes of a woman who had delivered bad news before and knew that the delivery mattered, and she said, Mr. Llewellyn, your daughter is not the person you think she is, your daughter has been working against this family for years, your daughter has been secretly building a case to have you declared incompetent, your daughter has been in contact with the conglomerate for months, your daughter has been feeding them information about the family business, your daughter is the reason the conglomerate knew about the clause, your daughter is the reason they knew exactly when to strike, your daughter has Been playing a long game, Mr. Llewellyn, and tonight was supposed to be the final move. Tonight was supposed to be the night everything came together. Tonight was supposed to be the night your family lost everything. I looked at Eleanor and her face was white, her eyes wide, her hand gripping mine so tightly I could feel her nails through my skin, and she said, "Sarah, my baby girl, Sarah would never do this, Sarah would never hurt us, Sarah would never." The detective said, "Mrs. Llewellyn, we have evidence, we have phone records, we have emails, we have bank records, we have a trail that leads directly from your daughter to the two men in custody, from your daughter to the conglomerate, from your daughter to the contract. Your daughter, Mrs. Llewellyn, has been plotting against this family for a very long time, and she has come very close to succeeding, very close to taking everything away from you." He sat in my living room with my wife's hand in mine, and I thought about my daughter, the little girl who had sat on my lap while I read her bedtime stories, the teenager who had argued with me about curfews, the young woman who had become a lawyer and had seemed so proud, so accomplished, so eager to build a life of her own, and I thought about how I had never really understood her, how I had never really seen her, how I had never really known what was going on inside her head, how I had been so focused on the business, on the legacy, on the name, that I had not noticed my own daughter slipping away from me. He said, "Sarah is not going to get away with this. I am going to make sure she does not get away with this. I am going to fight. I am going to fight her in court. I am going to fight her in the press. I am going to fight her everywhere. I am going to make sure everyone knows what she did. I am going to make sure she pays for this." The detective said, "Mr. Llewellyn, you do not need to fight your daughter. Your daughter is going to be arrested. Your daughter is going to be charged. Your daughter is going to face the consequences of her actions. You do not need to do anything except let the legal system do its work. You just need to be there for your wife. You just need to be there for your family. You just need to be there for the people who actually love you. The people who have been fighting for you. The people who have been protecting you. Even when you did not know it." He looked at Eleanor and I saw the woman I had married 47 years ago, the woman who had stood by me through everything, the woman who had never once given up on me, the woman who had sat in a dark living room with two men who had threatened her and had refused to sign a document that would have destroyed everything I had built, and I said, "Eje, I am so sorry, I am so sorry for everything. I am so sorry I was not there for you tonight. I am so sorry I was not there to protect you. I am so sorry I have been so caught up in the business, in the legacy, in the name, that I have not been there for you, that I have not been there for our family." She looked at me and her eyes were filled with tears and she said, "Frank, you are here now, that is all that matters. You came home. You came home when I asked you not to. You came home because you knew something was wrong. You came home because you loved me. You came home because you are a good man, you are a good father, you are a good husband, and I am so sorry, Frank, I am so sorry for everything that has happened. I am so sorry for everything you are going to have to go through, but I am so glad you are here. I am so glad you came home." He held her in my arms and I did not let go. I held her through the morning, through the investigation, through the arrest of the two men, through the first call from Arthur Chin telling me that he had found a way to block the sale, through the second call from Arthur telling me that he had filed the papers and the conglomerate had backed down, through the third call from Arthur telling me that Sarah had been arrested and was facing charges, through the silence that followed, the silence that fell over our house like a blanket, the silence that was not empty but full of everything that had been said and everything that had been left unsaid, full of the weight of 47 years of marriage and the weight of a family that had been broken and was trying to put itself back together. He thought about Sarah, my daughter, the little girl who had sat on my lap, the teenager who had argued about curfews, the woman who had tried to destroy everything I had built, and I did not know what to feel. I did not know whether to be angry or sad or betrayed or just empty. I did not know how to reconcile the daughter I loved with the person who had tried to take everything away. I did not know how to make sense of a world where the people you trust the most are the ones who can hurt you the most, where the people you love the most are the ones who can betray you the most, where the people you have given everything to are the ones who can take everything away. But I knew one thing. I knew that Eleanor was still there. I knew that Matthew was still trying to make things right. I knew that Arthurchan was still fighting for me. I knew that the people who mattered, the people who actually loved me, the people who had been there through everything, they were still there. They had not left. They had not given up. They had not betrayed me. They had stood by me. They had fought for me. They had protected me, even when I did not know it, even when I could not see it, even when I was too proud, too stubborn, too caught up in my own sense of betrayal to notice. I thought about the 47 seconds it had taken for me to read the text message and call Eleanor, the 47 seconds that had changed everything, the 47 seconds that had set in motion a chain of events that would reshape my family, my business, my life, and I thought about how those 47 seconds had been the most important 47 seconds of my life, how they had been the moment I had realized that I could not control everything, that I could not protect everyone, that I could not do everything on my own, that I needed help, that I needed support, that I needed the people who loved me to be there for me, and that I needed to be there for them. I thought about my grandfather, the man who had started Llewellyn Construction with a single truck and a handshake, the man who had taught me that the business was not just about money, it was about legacy, it was about the name. It was about showing up every day and doing honest work and leaving something behind that mattered, and I thought about how I had almost lost that legacy, almost lost that name, almost lost everything, because I had been too proud, too stubborn, too caught up in my own sense of what was right and what was wrong, to see the danger that was coming, to see the people who were trying to help me, to see the people who were actually worth trusting. He thought about Matthew, my son, who had made a terrible mistake, who had signed a contract without reading it, who had put everything at risk because he was too eager to prove himself, and I thought about how I had done the same thing, how I had been too eager to prove myself to my father, too eager to take over the business, too eager to show that I could handle it, and how I had made mistakes, how I had learned from them, how I had grown, how I had become the man I was today because of those mistakes, because of the people who had stood by me, because of the people who had forgiven me. I looked at Eleanor and I said, "AJ, we are going to get through this, we are going to get through this together, we are going to rebuild, we are going to move forward, we are going to make sure that everything we have built, everything our family has built, is not destroyed, is not taken away, is not lost. We are going to fight, and we are going to win, because we have each other, because we have our family, because we have the people who actually matter, the people who actually love us, the people who have been there through everything, and we are going to come out of this stronger, we are going to come out of this better, we are going to come out of this knowing exactly who we are and what we stand for, and we are not going to let anyone, not Sarah, not the conglomerate, not anyone, take that away from us." Eleanor looked at me and she smiled, the first real smile I had seen on her face in days, and she said, "Frank, you have always been the strongest person I know. You have always been the one who held everything together. You have always been the one who fought for what was right, and I know that we are going to get through this. I know that we are going to be okay. I know that we are going to come out of this stronger, because we have each other, because we have our family, because we are the people who actually matter, and I love you, Frank. I love you more than I have ever loved anyone, and I am so grateful that you came home, so grateful that you are here, so grateful that you are mine." I held her in my arms and I did not let go, and I thought about the 47 seconds that had changed everything, the 47 seconds that had brought me home, the 47 seconds that had saved my family, and I knew that I would spend the rest of my life making sure that I was there for the people who mattered, making sure that I was there for the people who loved me, making sure that I was there for the people who had been there for me, and that I would never, ever, take them for granted again. This story is about more than just a business or a contract or a betrayal. It is about the choices we make and the people we trust and the moments that define us. It is about the 47 seconds that can change everything. The 47 seconds that can save us or destroy us. The 47 seconds that can bring us home. It is a story that resonates with anyone who has ever faced a challenge, anyone who has ever been betrayed, anyone who has ever had to fight for what they believe in, anyone who has ever had to choose between what is easy and what is right. It is a story that reminds us that we are not alone, that the people who love us are always there, even when we cannot see them, even when we do not know it, even when we are too proud, too stubborn, too caught up in our own lives to notice. And it is a story that reminds us that no matter how dark things get, no matter how difficult the road ahead, no matter how many obstacles we face, we can always find our way home. We can always find the people who matter. We can always find the strength to keep going, because that is what family is, that is what love is, that is what it means to be human. The morning after the arrest, I woke up in my own bed for the first time in 3 days, and for a moment, I did not know where I was. The ceiling was familiar, the light coming through the curtains was familiar, the weight of Eleanor's body beside me was familiar, but something was different, something had shifted in the night, something that made the familiar feel strange and the strange feel permanent. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, listening to Eleanor breathe, and I thought about the phone call I was going to have to make, the one I had been dreading since the detective had told me the truth about Sarah. I did not know how to call my daughter and tell her that I knew. I did not know how to call my daughter and tell her that she was going to be arrested. I did not know how to call my daughter and tell her that she had destroyed our family. I did not know how to do any of it, but I knew I had to, because she was still my daughter, because she was still the little girl who had sat on my lap, because she was still the person I had raised, even if that person had become someone I did not recognize. I got out of bed quietly, not wanting to wake Eleanor, and I walked to the kitchen, the same kitchen where I had drunk coffee for 40 years, the same kitchen where I had read the newspaper and planned my days and argued with my children and made up with my wife, and I stood at the counter and I looked out the window at the street I had lived on for 40 years, and I thought about how different everything was, how different everything had become, how different everything was going to be. My phone was on the counter where I had left it the night before, and I picked it up and I scrolled through my contacts and I found Sarah's name, and I stared at it for a long time, and then I pressed the call button. It rang 4 times, and then her voicemail picked up, her voice, the voice I had heard 1,000 times, the voice I had taught to say her first words, the voice I had heard laugh and cry and argue and sing, and I said, "Sarah, it is Dad, I know what you did. I know about the contract, I know about the men, I know about all of it, and I want you to know that I still love you. I love you because you are my daughter, because you are my child, because you are part of me, but I am so disappointed. I am so angry, I am so hurt, and I need you to know that. I need you to understand what you have done to this family, what you have done to your mother, what you have done to your brother, what you have done to me, and I need you to know that I am not going to stop fighting. I am not going to stop fighting for what is right. I am not going to stop fighting for my family, and I am not going to stop loving you. Even though I do not understand how you could do this, even though I do not understand how you could hurt us like this, even though I do not understand how you could become this person, I am not going to stop loving you, but I am going to make sure that you face the consequences of your actions. I am going to make sure that justice is served, and I am going to make sure that you understand that what you did was wrong, that what you did was unforgivable, that what you did was a betrayal of everything this family stands for." He hung up the phone and I stood at the counter and I did not cry. I had not cried yet. I had not allowed myself to cry, because I was afraid that if I started, I would not be able to stop. I was afraid that if I let go, I would fall apart, and I could not fall apart, not now. Not when my family needed me, not when my wife needed me, not when my son needed me, not when everything was hanging in the balance. Eleanor came into the kitchen, her hair messy, her eyes still heavy with sleep, and she looked at me and she knew that I had called Sarah. He stared at Arthur across the cluttered desk, the evidence spread between us like a battlefield map, and I felt something inside me that I had never felt before, not in 40 years of construction, not in negotiating contracts with men who had twice my money and half my conscience, not even when I had driven home to find police cars surrounding my house. This was different, this was deeper, this was the specific, cold recognition of a betrayal that had been brewing for years, and I had been blind to it, completely and utterly blind. Arthur slid a photograph across the desk, a photograph of my partner of 30 years, Richard Morrison, standing in a parking lot with a man I had never seen before, a man who turned out to be a lawyer for the conglomerate. And the date stamp on the photograph was 18 months old, 18 months of planning, 18 months of deception, 18 months of watching Richard shake my hand and smile at my family and ask questions about the business with the same avuncular warmth he had always shown, while secretly, quietly, methodically, he was dismantling everything I had built. Arthur said, "Frank, I have been looking into this for weeks. Ever since you called me that night from Newark, I have been digging, I have been following the money, I have been tracing the connections, and what I found is a whip that starts with Richard Morrison and ends with your daughter, a whip that involves the conglomerate, the forged documents, the break-in, everything. Richard Morrison is the one who put Sarah up to this. Richard Morrison is the one who financed the operation. Richard Morrison is the one who gave Sarah the information she needed to manipulate Matthew. Richard Morrison is the one who hired the two men to come to your house. And Richard Morrison is the one who is going to walk away with everything if we do not stop him." I felt the room tilt, the walls pressing in, the floor shifting under my feet, and I said, Richard has been my partner for 30 years, Richard was my best man at my wedding, Richard stood beside me when I buried my father, Richard held my hand when we almost lost the company in the recession, Richard has been like a brother to me, closer than a brother, and now you are telling me that he did this, that he orchestrated all of this, that he used my daughter, my son, my wife, my entire family, to steal everything I have built. Why would he do this? What could possibly motivate a man who has everything to throw it all away, to betray the person who trusted him most in the world? Arthur leaned back in his chair and he said, "Frank, I have been practicing law for 35 years, and in that time, I have seen more betrayals than I can count, more schemes, more plots, more conspiracies, but this one is different. This one is personal, this one is not about the money, not really, this one is about something else, something that Richard has been carrying for a long time, something that he has never told you, something that I only discovered because I have access to records that are sealed, to documents that are private, to information that Richard thought no one would ever find. Richard Morrison, Frank, is not who you think he is. Richard Morrison has been playing a long game. A game that started long before he became your partner. A game that involves your family, your business, your entire legacy. And I need you to understand that this is not just about the money, this is not just about the business. This is about something much deeper, much darker, much more personal." He said, "Arthur, what are you talking about? What do you mean Richard is not who I think he is? What do you mean this is personal? What do you mean this has been going on for years? Tell me everything. I need to know the truth, all of it." Arthur took a deep breath and he said, "Frank, Richard Morrison is not Richard Morrison. Richard Morrison is Richard Callahan. His real name is Richard Callahan, and Richard Callahan, Frank, is the son of a man named James Callahan, a man who was your grandfather's partner, a man who was betrayed by your grandfather, a man who lost everything because of a deal that went wrong, a man who swore he would get revenge, and Richard, Frank, Richard is the son of that man. Richard has been planning this for years. Richard has been waiting, watching, gathering information, building his case, and everything he has done, the partnership, the friendship, the trust, it was all a lie, it was all part of the plan. It was all leading to this moment when he could take everything away from you, the way your grandfather took everything away from his father. I sat in Arthur's office and I felt the world rearrange itself around me, the pieces of my life that I had taken for granted, the assumptions I had made, the trust one had placed, all of it was a lie. 30 years of partnership, 30 years of friendship, 30 years of Richard standing beside me, smiling at my children, patting my back, asking about my health, my family, my future, and all of it was a performance, a carefully constructed performance designed to bring me to this moment of utter devastation. He said, Arthur, how did you find this out? How did you discover all of this? How do you know this is true? And Arthur said, Frank, I have been in this business a long time, and I have made a lot of contacts, and one of those contacts, a private investigator who owes me a favor, has been digging into Richard's background for me, and what he found, what he discovered, is that Richard Morrison is a complete fabrication, a name created, a past invented, a life constructed, all to hide the truth that Richard is actually Richard Callahan, the son of James Callahan, the man who swore revenge on the Llewellyn family, and everything Richard has done, every step he has taken, every move he has made, has been part of that revenge, has been part of that plan, has been part of that long game, and we are only now beginning to understand the full scope of it. I stood up from the chair and I walked to the window of Arthur's office and I looked out at the city, at the buildings I had helped to build, at the skyline that I had helped to shape, at the legacy I had worked my entire life to create. And I thought about Richard, about the man I had trusted, the man I had loved like a brother, the man who had smiled at my children and hugged my wife and stood beside me through the best and worst moments of my life, and I thought about how all of it, every single moment, had been a lie. I thought about Sarah, my daughter, the little girl who had sat on my lap, the woman who had betrayed me, the person who had been used by Richard, manipulated by Richard, controlled by Richard, and I thought about how I had failed her, how I had not seen what was happening to her, how I had not been there for her when she needed me, how I had not noticed that she was being pulled into something dark and dangerous and destructive. I thought about Matthew, my son, the man who had signed a contract without reading it, the man who had trusted the wrong people, the man who had made a terrible mistake, but who was still my son, still my family, still the person I loved. And I thought about how I was going to protect him, how I was going to protect all of them, how I was going to fight Richard and the conglomerate and everyone who had tried to destroy my family. I turned to Arthur and I said, Arthur, I need to know everything. I need to know what Richard has planned. I need to know what he is going to do next. I need to know how to stop him. I need to know how to protect my family. And I need to know how to make sure that he does not get away with this. I need to know how to make sure that justice is served. Arthur nodded and he said, Frank, I have been working on this case for weeks, and I have gathered enough evidence to take Richard down, to expose him, to make sure that he faces the consequences of his actions. But I need you to be strong. I need you to be brave. I need you to trust me, because what I am about to ask you to do is going to be difficult. It is going to be painful. It is going to be the hardest thing you have ever done, and I need you to be ready for that. I need you to be prepared for what is coming. I said, Arthur, I have been through more in the last few weeks than most people go through in a lifetime. I have been betrayed by my daughter. I have been manipulated by my partner. I have been threatened, attacked, and almost destroyed. I have survived all of it, and I am still standing. I am still fighting. I am still here, and I am not going to stop. I am not going to give up. I am not going to let Richard or anyone else destroy my family, so tell me what I need to do, tell me how to fight back, tell me how to win. Arthur stood up and he walked to the window and he stood beside me, looking out at the city, and he said, Frank, I need you to go to Richard, I need you to confront him, I need you to make him believe that you are broken, that you are defeated, that you have given up. I need you to make him think that he has won, that his plan has succeeded, that he has destroyed you, because when he thinks that, when he believes that, he will make a mistake, he will slip up, he will reveal something, and when he does, I will be there, I will have the evidence, I will have the proof, I will have everything I need to take him down, but I need you to do this, Frank, I need you to face the man who betrayed you. I need you to smile at him and shake his hand and tell him that you are done, that you are finished, that he can have it all, and I need you to make him believe it. I looked at Arthur and I felt a weight settle on my shoulders, a weight that I had never felt before, a weight that was heavier than any foundation I had ever poured, any contract I had ever signed, any negotiation I had ever conducted. And I said, he said, Arthur, what are you talking about? What do you mean Richard is not who I think he is? What do you mean this is personal? What do you mean this has been going on for years? Tell me everything, I need to know the truth, all of it. Arthur took a deep breath and he said, Frank, Richard Morrison is not Richard Morrison, Richard Morrison is Richard Callahan, his real name is Richard Callahan, and Richard Callahan, Frank, is the son of a man named James Callahan. A man who was your grandfather's partner, a man who was betrayed by your grandfather, a man who lost everything because of a deal that went wrong, a man who swore he would get revenge, and Richard, Frank, Richard is the son of that man. Richard has been planning this for years. Richard has been waiting, watching, gathering information, building his case, and everything he has done, the partnership, the friendship, the trust, it was all a lie, it was all part of the plan. It was all leading to this moment when he could take everything away from you, the way your grandfather took everything away from his father. I sat in Arthur's office and I felt the world rearrange itself around me, the pieces of my life that I had taken for granted, the assumptions I had made, the trust one had placed, all of it was a lie. 30 years of partnership, 30 years of friendship, 30 years of Richard standing beside me, smiling at my children, patting my back, asking about my health, my family, my future, and all of it was a performance, a carefully constructed performance designed to bring me to this moment of utter devastation. He said, Arthur, how did you find this out? How did you discover all of this? How do you know this is true? And Arthur said, Frank, I have been in this business a long time, and I have made a lot of contacts, and one of those contacts, a private investigator who owes me a favor, has been digging into Richard's background for me, and what he found, what he discovered, is that Richard Morrison is a complete fabrication, a name created, a past invented, a life constructed, all to hide the truth that Richard is actually Richard Callahan, the son of James Callahan, the man who swore revenge on the Llewellyn family, and everything Richard has done, every step he has taken, every move he has made, has been part of that revenge, has been part of that plan, has been part of that long game, and we are only now beginning to understand the full scope of it. I stood up from the chair and I walked to the window of Arthur's office and I looked out at the city, at the buildings I had helped to build, at the skyline that I had helped to shape, at the legacy I had worked my entire life to create, and I thought about Richard, about the man I had trusted, the man I had loved like a brother, the man who had smiled at my children and hugged my wife and stood beside me through the best and worst moments of my life, and I thought about how all of it, every single moment, had been a lie. I thought about Sarah, my daughter, the little girl who had sat on my lap, the woman who had betrayed me, the person who had been used by Richard, manipulated by Richard, controlled by Richard, and I thought about how I had failed her, how I had not seen what was happening to her, how I had not been there for her when she needed me, how I had not noticed that she was being pulled into something dark and dangerous and destructive. I thought about Matthew, my son, the man who had signed a contract without reading it, the man who had trusted the wrong people, the man who had made a terrible mistake, but who was still my son, still my family, still the person I loved. And I thought about how I was going to protect him, how I was going to protect all of them, how I was going to fight Richard and the conglomerate and everyone who had tried to destroy my family. I turned to Arthur and I said, "Arthur, I need to know everything. I need to know what Richard has planned. I need to know what he is going to do next. I need to know how to stop him. I need to know how to protect my family. And I need to know how to make sure that he does not get away with this. I need to know how to make sure that justice is served." Arthur nodded and he said, "Frank, I have been working on this case for weeks, and I have gathered enough evidence to take Richard down, to expose him, to make sure that he faces the consequences of his actions. But I need you to be strong. I need you to be brave. I need you to trust me, because what I am about to ask you to do is going to be difficult. It is going to be painful. It is going to be the hardest thing you have ever done, and I need you to be ready for that. I need you to be prepared for what is coming." I said, "Arthur, I have been through more in the last few weeks than most people go through in a lifetime. I have been betrayed by my daughter. I have been manipulated by my partner. I have been threatened, attacked, and almost destroyed. I have survived all of it, and I am still standing. I am still fighting. I am still here, and I am not going to stop. I am not going to give up. I am not going to let Richard or anyone else destroy my family. So tell me what I need to do. Tell me how to fight back. Tell me how to win." Arthur stood up and he walked to the window and he stood beside me, looking out at the city, and he said, "Frank, I need you to go to Richard. I need you to confront him. I need you to make him believe that you are broken, that you are defeated, that you have given up. I need you to make him think that he has won, that his plan has succeeded, that he has destroyed you, because when he thinks that, when he believes that, he will make a mistake, he will slip up, he will reveal something, and when he does, I will be there. I will have the evidence, I will have the proof, I will have everything I need to take him down. But I need you to do this, Frank. I need you to face the man who betrayed you. I need you to smile at him and shake his hand and tell him that you are done, that you are finished, that he can have it all, and I need you to make him believe it." I looked at Arthur and I felt a weight settle on my shoulders, a weight that I had never felt before, a weight that was heavier than any foundation I had ever poured, any contract I had ever signed, any negotiation I had ever conducted. And I said, "Arthur, I can do that. I can face Richard. I can lie to him. I can pretend that I am broken, because I am broken. Arthur, I am more broken than I have ever been in my life, and pretending that I am broken, pretending that I am defeated, pretending that I have given up, that is not going to be hard, that is going to be the easiest thing I have ever done, because it is true, I am broken, I am defeated, I have given up, but I am not going to stay that way. I am not going to let Richard destroy me. I am not going to let him destroy my family. I am going to fight. I am going to fight with everything I have, and I am going to win." Arthur put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Frank, I know this is hard. I know this is painful. I know this is the hardest thing you have ever had to do, but you are strong, you are resilient, you are a survivor, and I believe in you. I believe that you can do this. I believe that you can face Richard and smile and shake his hand and pretend that you are done, and I believe that when the time comes, when the evidence is gathered, when the case is ready, you will be able to stand up and fight. You will be able to face him in court. You will be able to look him in the eye and tell the world what he did, and you will win, Frank, you will win, because the truth is on your side, because justice is on your side, because I am on your side, and because your family is on your side, and that, Frank, that is the most powerful weapon you have. I left Arthur's office that afternoon and I drove home, but I did not go straight home. I drove to a parking lot, the same parking lot where Richard had been photographed 18 months ago with the lawyer from the conglomerate. And I sat in my truck and I stared at the empty space where they had stood, and I thought about all the times Richard and I had sat in parking lots just like this one, planning our next project, working through problems, solving puzzles, building our business, building our lives, building our friendship, and I thought about how it had all been a lie, how every conversation, every decision, every moment of trust had been part of Richard's long game, his plan for revenge, his mission to destroy my family. I thought about my grandfather, the man who had started Llewellyn Construction, the man who had been partners with James Callahan, the man who had somehow, in some way, betrayed that partnership. And I thought about how the echoes of that betrayal were still reverberating, still causing damage, still destroying lives. 80 years later. I thought about Richard, the son of James Callahan, the man who had carried the burden of revenge for decades, the man who had sacrificed everything, his integrity, his relationships, his own soul, to fulfill his father's mission. And I thought about how sad that was, how tragic, how empty, how hollow, to live a life dedicated to revenge, to dedicate your entire existence to destroying someone else, to let that hatred consume you, to let it define you, to let it become you. I thought about my own life, my own choices, my own mistakes, and I realized that I had been carrying my own burdens, my own hatreds, my own grudges, for too long. I had been so focused on the business, on the legacy, on the name, that I had forgotten what mattered. I had forgotten my family, I had forgotten my wife, I had forgotten my children. I had been so consumed by the past, by the legacy, by the weight of my own expectations, that I had lost sight of the present, of the people who were right in front of me, of the love that was right in front of me, and I realized that I had been like Richard. In a way, I had been so focused on what I had lost, on what had been taken from me, on what I was afraid of losing, that I had not noticed what I still had, what I still possessed, what I still had the power to protect. I started the truck and I drove home, and when I walked through the front door, Eleanor was there, waiting for me, and she looked at me with the steady, clear eyes of a woman who had seen me at my best and my worst and had never wavered, never stopped loving me, never stopped believing in me. And I walked to her and I took her in my arms and I held her, and I said, "Adie, I know everything, I know about Richard, I know about his father, I know about the plan, and I know what I have to do, and you know that it is going to be hard, I know that it is going to be painful, I know that it is going to be the hardest thing I have ever done, but I also know that I can do it, because I have you, because I have Matthew, because I have our family, because I have the people who actually matter, the people who actually love me, and I am going to fight. I am going to fight Richard. I am going to fight the conglomerate. I am going to fight everyone who has tried to destroy us, and I am going to win. Because we are stronger than them, because we are better than them, because we are a family, and that means something, that means everything." Eleanor held me for a long moment, her arms wrapped around me with a strength that belied her small frame, and when she finally pulled back, her eyes were dry and steady, the eyes of a woman who had made her peace with the chaos and was ready to face whatever came next. She said, "Frank, I have known Richard for 30 years, I have sat beside him at dinner parties, I have watched him play with our children, I have trusted him with our secrets, our fears, our hopes. And now I find out that he has been plotting against us since before we even met, that his friendship was a weapon, his smile a mask, his partnership a long con, and I do not know how to process that. I do not know how to make sense of it, I do not know how to reconcile them, and I thought I knew. Wisdom, and I am now learning he truly is." I took her hands in mine and I said, "Adie, I do not know how to process it either, I do not know how to make sense of it, I do not know how to reconcile the Richard the First trusted with the Richard who has been destroying us from the inside. But I know that we cannot let him win, we cannot let him destroy us, we cannot let him take everything we have built, because if we do, then he wins, then his father wins, then the hatred and the revenge and the bitterness win, and I am not going to let that happen. I am not going to let Richard and his father's legacy of hatred destroy our family's legacy of love. Matthew came into the room, his face drawn and tired, and he said, "Dad, I heard what you said, I heard about Richard, I heard about his father, I heard about the revenge, and I need you to know that I am going to help you. I am going to do whatever it takes to make this right. I am going to stand beside you, I am going to fight with you. I am going to help you take Richard down, because this is my fault, all of this is my fault, if I had not signed that contract, if I had not been so eager, so cocky, so convinced that I knew what I was doing, none of this would have happened. Richard would not have been able to use me, Sarah would not have been able to manipulate me, the conglomerate would not have had the opening they needed, and you, Dad, you would not have had to go through any of this, you would not have had to face the betrayal, the pain, the fear, the chaos, and I am so sorry, I am so sorry for everything, I am so sorry for the burden I have placed on you, I am so sorry for the weight I have made you carry." I looked at my son, at the man who had made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but who was still standing, still fighting, still trying to make things right, and I said, "Matthew, you made a mistake, a serious mistake, a mistake that almost cost us everything, but you are not the one who orchestrated this, you are not the one who plotted against us, you are not the one who manipulated and betrayed and destroyed, you are the one who was used, you are the one who was manipulated, you are the one who was betrayed, and I am not going to blame you for being deceived. I am not going to blame you for being human, I am not going to blame you for trusting the wrong people, because I did the same thing, I trusted Richard, I trusted Sarah, I trusted everyone, and I was wrong, I was so wrong, but I am not going to let that define me, I am not going to let that destroy me, and I am not going to let it destroy you." Eleanor walked to Matthew and she put her arms around him, and she said, "Matthew, your father is right. You are not to blame for this, you were deceived, you were manipulated, you were used, and that is not your fault. That is not a reflection of who you are, that is a reflection of who Richard is, who Sarah has become, who the people who did this to us are, and I am not going to let you carry that guilt, I am not going to let you carry that weight, because you are my son, you are my family. You are the person I love, and I am not going to let anyone, not Richard, not Sarah, not the conglomerate, not anyone, make you feel like you are responsible for their actions, because you are not, you are responsible for your own actions, and you are doing everything you can to make things right, and that, Matthew, that is what matters, that is what defines you, that is what makes you the man I raised, the man I am proud of, the man I will always love." The three of us stood in the living room, holding each other, and for a moment, despite everything, despite the betrayal, despite the pain, despite the chaos, I felt something I had not felt in weeks, peace, a quiet, still peace that settled over me like a blanket, warm and heavy and reassuring. I knew that the fight was not over, I knew that the battle was still ahead, I knew that Richard was still out there, still plotting, still scheming, still trying to destroy us, but I also knew that I was not alone, that I had Eleanor, I had Matthew, I had Arthur, I had people who loved me, people who believed in me, people who were willing to fight beside me, and that was everything, that was the only thing that mattered. The next morning, I woke up early, before the sun, and I stood at the kitchen window watching the light creep over the horizon, the first rays of dawn painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold, and I thought about the day ahead, the day I would face Richard, the day I would confront him, the day I would begin the process of dismantling the man who had tried to destroy my family. Arthur had called the night before, finalizing the plan, going over the details, making sure that everything was in place, and he had said, "Frank, tomorrow is going to be the hardest day of your life. You are going to face the man who betrayed you. You are going to smile at him, you are going to shake his hand, you are going to pretend that you are broken, that you are defeated, that you are done, and you are going to do it so convincingly that he believes it, because if he believes it, if he truly believes that he has won, he will make a mistake, he will reveal something, he will give me the evidence I need to destroy him, and when that happens, when the evidence is gathered, when the case is ready, we will take him down, we will expose him, we will make sure that he faces the consequences of his actions." I had listened to Arthur's words and I had felt a cold resolve settle over me, a determination that I had not felt since the early days of my career, when I had fought to build the business, to establish the legacy, to create something that would outlast me, and I had said, "Arthur, I am ready to face Richard, I am ready to smile at him, I am ready to shake his hand, I am ready to pretend that I am broken, because I am ready to fight, I am ready to win, I am ready to do whatever it takes to protect my family." I drove to Richard's office that morning, the same office we had shared for 30 years, the same office where we had planned projects and solved problems and built our business, the same office where Richard had smiled at me and shaken my hand and lied to my face. And when I walked in, Richard was there, sitting behind his desk, looking exactly the same as he had always looked, the same warm smile, the same friendly eyes, the same open, welcoming demeanor that had fooled me for 30 years. He stood up and he walked around his desk and he said, "Frank, I am so glad you came, I have been worried about you, I have heard about what happened with Sarah, I have heard about the contract, I have heard about everything, and I want you to know that I am here for you, I am here to support you, I am here to help you get through this, because you are my partner, you are my friend, you are my brother, and I am not going to let you go through this alone." I looked at Richard, at the man who had been my partner for 30 years, the man who had stood beside me through the best and worst moments of my life, the man who had lied to me, manipulated me, betrayed me, and I smiled. I smiled the same smile I had always smiled at him, and I said, "Richard, thank you for being here, thank you for your support, thank you for your friendship, because I need it right now, I need all the support I can get, because I am broken, Richard, I am more broken than I have ever been in my life. My daughter has betrayed me, my son is lost, my family is falling apart, and I do not know how to put it back together, I do not know how to move forward, I do not know how to keep going, and I need you, Richard, I need you to help me, I need you to tell me what to do." Richard's face softened, a look of genuine concern crossing his features, and he said, "Frank, I am so sorry. I am so sorry for what you are going through. I know how hard this is, I know how painful this is, I know how devastating this is. But I want you to know that you are not alone. I am here, I am always here, and I am going to help you get through this, I am going to help you rebuild, I am going to help you move forward. And we are going to come out of this stronger than we were before. I promise you that." He put his hand on my shoulder, the same gesture he had made 1,000 times, the gesture that had always made me feel safe, supported, loved, and I felt a cold anger rise in me, an anger that I had to push down, an anger that I had to hide, an anger that I had to suppress, because I could not let it show, I could not let him see what I was feeling, I could not let him know that I knew the truth. He said, "Richard, I do not know what I would do without you, you have always been there for me, you have always been my rock, my support, my friend, and I am so grateful to have you in my life, so grateful to have you as my partner, so grateful to have you as my brother, and I want you to know that I appreciate everything you have done for me, everything you have done for my family, everything you have done for our business, and I am not going to forget it, I am not going to forget any of it. Richard smiled, the same warm, genuine smile he had always given me, and he said, "Frank, you do not have to thank me, you do not have to appreciate me, because that is what partners do, that is what friends do, that is what brothers do. We support each other, we help each other, we protect each other, and I am going to do that for you. I am going to support you, I am going to help you, I am going to protect you, and we are going to get through this together, I promise you that." We sat down and we talked about the business, about the projects, about the future, and as we talked, I watched Richard, I watched his face, his gestures, his expressions, and I saw the man I had known for 30 years, the man I had trusted, the man I had loved like a brother, and I saw the lie, I saw the deception, I saw the mask, and I realized that I had been blind, completely blind. For 30 years, I had not seen the real Richard, I had not seen the man behind the mask, I had not seen the schemer, the manipulator, the destroyer, and I felt a profound sadness, a profound grief, a profound loss, for the friendship that had never been real, for the trust that had been betrayed, for the love that had been a lie. After an hour, I stood up and I shook Richard's hand and I said, "Richard, thank you for everything, thank you for being here, thank you for your support, thank you for your friendship, and I want you to know that I am going to be okay. I am going to get through this, I am going to rebuild, I am going to move forward, and I am going to do it because I have you, because I have my family, because I have people who believe in me, people who love me, people who support me, and I am not going to let anyone, not Sarah, not the conglomerate, not anyone, take that away from me." Richard smiled and he said, "Frank, that is the spirit, that is the attitude, that is the strength that I have always admired in you, and I know that you are going to come out of this stronger than ever. I know that you are going to rebuild. I know that you are going to succeed, and I am going to be right there beside you, every step of the way, because that is what partners do, that is what friends do, that is what brothers do, and I am going to do that for you. I am going to be there for you, I am going to support you, I am going to help you, and we are going to get through this together." I left Richard's office and I walked to my truck and I sat in the driver's seat and I did not move for a long time. I just sat there, staring at the building, at the office I had shared with Richard for 30 years, at the place where we had built our business, our friendship, our partnership, and I thought about the conversation, the lies, the deception, the performance, and I felt a weight settle over me, a weight that was heavier than anything I had ever carried, heavier than the foundations I had poured, heavier than the contracts I had signed, heavier than the negotiations I had conducted, heavier than everything. I pulled out my phone and I called Arthur, and he answered on the first ring, and I said, "Arthur, I did it, I saw Richard, I smiled at him, I shook his hand, I pretended that I was broken, that I was defeated, that I was done, and he believed me, Arthur, he believed every word, he bought it completely, and I need to know what happens next, I need to know what we do now, I need to know how we take him down." Arthur was quiet for a moment and then he said, "Frank, you did exactly what I asked you to do, you planted the seed, you made him believe that you were defeated, and now we wait, now we watch, now we gather the evidence. Because when Richard thinks that he has won, when he thinks that there is nothing left to fear, he will make a mistake, he will slip up, he will reveal something, and when he does, we will be there, we will have the proof, we will have everything we need to destroy him. And Frank, I need you to be patient, I need you to be strong, I need you to be ready, because the next few weeks are going to be difficult, they are going to be painful, they are going to be the hardest weeks of your life. But I need you to remember that you are not alone, that I am with you, that your family is with you, and that we are going to win." I drove home and when I walked through the front door, Eleanor was there, waiting for me, and she looked at my face and she She knew that I had done what I had to do. She knew that I had faced Richard. She knew that I had lied to him. She knew that the performance had begun, and she walked to me and she took my hand and she led me to the living room, and she sat me down on the couch, and she said, "Frank, tell me everything, tell me what happened, tell me what Richard said, tell me how you are feeling." I looked at Eleanor, at the woman who had been my wife for 47 years, at the woman who had stood beside me through everything, at the woman who had never once given up on me, and I said, "Aji, I did it, I faced Richard." I smiled at him, I shook his hand, I pretended that I was broken, that I was defeated, that I was done, and he believed me, he bought it completely, and I thought that I would feel better, I thought that I would feel relieved, I thought that I would feel like I had taken a step toward justice, but I do not feel any of that. I feel empty, I feel hollow, I feel like I have betrayed myself, like I have betrayed the man I used to be, the man who would never lie, never deceive, never pretend, and I do not know how to reconcile that. I do not know how to live with the fact that I have become the thing I hate, that I have become a liar, a deceiver, a performer, all to fight a man who has been doing the same thing to me for 30 years. Eleanor sat beside me on the couch and she took both of my hands in hers, her grip firm and warm, and she said, "Frank, listen to me, you are not a liar, you are not a deceiver, you are not a performer. You are a man who is fighting for his family, a man who is doing whatever it takes to protect the people he loves, and there is nothing wrong with that, there is nothing shameful about that, there is nothing dishonest about that. Because you are not doing this for yourself, you are not doing this for revenge, you are not doing this for any selfish reason, you are doing this because you have to, because if you do not fight, if you do not stand up, if you do not do whatever it takes, Richard will win, the conglomerate will win, the hatred and the bitterness and the revenge will win, and I am not going to let that happen, you are not going to let that happen, we are not going to let that happen, because we are stronger than them, because we are better than them, because we are a family, and that means something, that means everything." I looked at Eleanor and I felt the weight on my shoulders lift just slightly, just enough for me to breathe, just enough for me to see a glimmer of hope in the darkness, and I said, "Aji, you are right, you are always right. I am not doing this for myself, I am doing this for us, I am doing this for Matthew, I am doing this for our family, I am doing this because I have to, because if I do not, everything we have built, everything we have fought for, everything we have sacrificed, will be gone, and I am not going to let that happen. I am not going to let Richard win, I am not going to let the conglomerate win, I am not going to let the hatred and the bitterness and the revenge win, because we are better than that, we are stronger than that, we are a family, and that is the most powerful weapon we have." The weeks that followed were a test of endurance, a test of patience, a test of faith. I went to work every day, I smiled at Richard, I shook his hand, I pretended that I was broken, that I was defeated, that I was done. And I watched him carefully, I watched him closely, I watched him for any sign, any slip, any mistake, any reveal that would give me the evidence I needed to destroy him. Arthur was working tirelessly behind the scenes, gathering documents, interviewing witnesses, building the case, and every few days, he would call me and give me an update, a small piece of the puzzle that was slowly coming together, a piece of the web that was slowly being unraveled, a piece of the conspiracy that was slowly being exposed. I learned that Richard had been embezzling from the company for years, siphoning funds into offshore accounts, creating shell companies, laundering money through fake contracts and phantom projects, and I learned that he had been using Sarah as his agent, his operative, his pawn, feeding her information, manipulating her emotions, exploiting her vulnerabilities, turning her against her own family. He learned that the conglomerate was not just a buyer, but a partner, a co-conspirator, a collaborator in the scheme to destroy my family and steal my legacy, and I learned that Richard had been planning all of this for years. Years before he had even met me, years before he had become my partner, years before he had smiled at me and shaken my hand and called me his brother. One evening, Arthur called and said, "Frank, I have it, I have everything I need, I have the evidence, I have the proof, I have the documents, the emails, the recordings, everything, and I am ready to move, I am ready to take Richard down. I am ready to file the charges, I am ready to go to court, I am ready to do whatever it takes to make sure that he faces the consequences of his actions. But I need to know if you are ready, I need to know if you are prepared, I need to know if you are willing to face him in court, to look him in the eye, to tell the world what he did, to stand up and fight. I took a deep breath and I said, Arthur, I have been waiting for this moment for weeks, I have been pretending, I have been performing, I have been lying to Richard every single day, and it has been the hardest thing I have ever done, but I did it because I knew that this moment would come, the moment when I could finally stop pretending, stop performing, stop lying, and start fighting, start telling the truth, start taking back everything that Richard has tried to steal from me. From my family, from our legacy, and I am ready, Arthur, I am ready to face Richard, I am ready to go to court, I am ready to stand up and fight, because I have nothing left to lose, and everything to gain. The day of the hearing arrived, and I woke up before the sun, the same way I had woken up on the day I had faced Richard in his office, the same way I had woken up on the day I had driven home to find police cars surrounding my house, the same way I had woken up on every difficult day of my life, and I stood at the kitchen window and I watched the light creep over the horizon, the first rays of dawn painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold, and I thought about everything that had led to this moment, the betrayal of Sarah, the manipulation of Matthew, the lies of Richard, the conspiracy of the conglomerate, the pain, the fear, the chaos, the devastation, and I thought about everything that was at stake, the business, the legacy, the family, the future, everything I had built, everything I had fought for, everything I had sacrificed, and I knew that I was ready, I knew that I had to be ready, because this was the moment, this was the fight, this was the battle that would determine everything. Eleanor came into the kitchen, dressed in her best suit, her hair neatly styled, her face calm and determined, and she walked to me and she took my hand and she said, Frank, I am going with you, I am going to stand beside you, I am going to be there for you, no matter what happens, because that is what partners do, that is what spouses do, that is what people who love each other do, we stand together, we fight together, we win together, and I am going to be right there beside you, every step of the way. I looked at Eleanor, at the woman who had been my wife for 47 years, at the woman who had stood beside me through everything, at the woman who had never once given up on me, and I felt a wave of emotion wash over me, a wave of gratitude, of love, of appreciation, for everything she had done, everything she had sacrificed, everything she had given, and I said, Adie, I do not know what I would do without you, I do not know how I would have gotten through any of this without you, I do not know who I would be without you, because you are everything, you are my rock, my anchor, my foundation, and I am so grateful to have you in my life, so grateful to have you as my wife, so grateful to have you as my partner, and I love you, Adie, I love you more than I have ever loved anyone, and I am going to fight, I am going to fight for us, I am going to fight for our family, I am going to fight for our future, and I am going to win, because I have you, because I have your love, because I have your support, and that is the most powerful weapon I have. We drove to the courthouse together, Matthew was there, waiting for us, and Arthur was there, waiting for us, and we walked into the courtroom together, a family united, a family determined, a family ready to fight. Richard was there, sitting at the defendant's table, flanked by his lawyers, and when he saw me, he smiled, the same warm smile he had always given me, the same smile that had fooled me for 30 years, and he nodded, a small, almost imperceptible nod, as if to say, here we are, Frank, here we are at the end of the road, and I have won, and there is nothing you can do about it. I looked at Richard, at the man who had been my partner for 30 years, the man who had lied to me, manipulated me, betrayed me, and I felt nothing, no anger, no hatred, no bitterness, just a profound sadness, a profound grief, a profound loss for the friendship that had never been real, the trust that had been betrayed, the love that had been a lie. The hearing began, and Arthur presented the evidence, the documents, the emails, the recordings, the photographs, everything, and as each piece of evidence was presented, as each new detail emerged, I watched Richard's face, and I saw the mask slowly slip, I saw the confidence erode, I saw the facade crumble, and I felt a sense of satisfaction, a sense of vindication, a sense of justice, that I had not felt in weeks, months, years. Arthur argued for nearly an hour, meticulously laying out the case, systematically dismantling Richard's defense, methodically exposing the conspiracy, the embezzlement, the fraud, the manipulation, the betrayal, and when he was finished, When he had presented everything, when he had laid it all bare, the judge looked at Richard and said, Mr. Morrison, or should I say Mr. Callahan, do you have anything to say for yourself? Richard stood up, his face pale, his eyes hollow, his voice barely a whisper, and he said, Your Honor, I have nothing to say. I did everything they said I did. I planned it, I orchestrated it, I executed it, and I would do it again. Because they, the Llewellyns, they destroyed my father, they destroyed my family, they took everything from us, and I was just taking back what was rightfully mine, what was stolen from us, what was taken from us, and I am not sorry, I am not sorry for any of it. Because they deserved it, they deserved everything they got, and more. The courtroom fell silent, a heavy silence, a thick silence, a silence that seemed to swallow everything, and I looked at Richard, at the man who had been my partner for 30 years, at the man who had lied to me, manipulated me, betrayed me, at the man who was still consumed by hatred, by bitterness, by revenge, and I felt a profound sadness, a profound grief, a profound loss, for the man he could have been, for the friendship we could have had, for the life we could have shared, if only he had chosen a different path. The judge sentenced Richard to 15 years in prison, and as the bailiffs led him away, he looked at me, and there was something in his eyes, something that I had never seen before, not hatred, not bitterness, not anger, but something else, something that looked almost like regret, almost like sadness, almost like a man who had finally realized that his revenge had cost him everything, his freedom, his family, his future, his soul. I walked out of the courtroom with Eleanor and Matthew, and Arthur was beside us, and we stood in the hallway, in the same hallway where so much had happened, so much had been revealed, so much had been lost and found, and I looked at my family, at the people who had stood by me, the people who had fought beside me, the people who had never given up on me, and I felt a sense of peace, a sense of closure, a sense of hope, that I had not felt in months. I said, we did it together, we faced the betrayal, we faced the pain, we faced the chaos, and we came out the other side, stronger, better, more united than ever, and I am so proud of us, I am so proud of our family, I am so proud of the people we have become, and I want you to know that I love you, I love both of you, more than I have ever loved anyone, and I am so grateful to have you in my life, so grateful to have you as my family, so grateful to have you as my everything. Matthew looked at me, his eyes filled with tears, and he said, Dad, I am so sorry for everything, I am so sorry for the mistakes I made, the pain I caused, the burden I placed on you, and I want you to know that I am going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you, making it up to Mom, making it up to our family, because I love you, Dad, I love you more than I have ever loved anyone, and I am so grateful to have you as my father, so grateful to have you as my role model, so grateful to have you as my hero. I put my arm around Matthew and I said, Son, you do not have to spend the rest of your life making anything up to me, because you are my son, you are my family, you are the person I love, and nothing you do, nothing you say, nothing you become, will ever change that. You are my son, and I love you, and I will always love you, and I am so proud of you, so proud of the man you have become, so proud of the person you are, and I know that you are going to do great things, I know that you are going to build something amazing, I know that you are going to create a legacy that will outlast all of us, and I am going to be right there beside you, every step of the way, because that is what fathers do, that is what families do, that is what people who love each other do. Eleanor put her arm around both of us and she said, Frank, Matthew, we have been through so much, we have faced so many challenges, we have overcome so many obstacles, and we are still standing, we are still together, we are still a family, and I know that no matter what comes, no matter what challenges we face, no matter what obstacles we overcome, we are going to be okay, because we have each other, because we have our love, because we have our family, and that is everything, that is the only thing that matters. We stood in the hallway, the three of us, holding each other, and I thought about everything we had been through, everything we had lost, everything we had gained, and I knew that we were going to be okay, I knew that we were going to rebuild, I knew that we were going to move forward, I knew that we were going to create a new legacy, a new future, a new beginning, because we had each other, because we had our love, because we had our family. In the months that followed, we began the process of rebuilding. Arthur helped us navigate the legal challenges, the financial challenges, the emotional challenges, and slowly, gradually, we began to put the pieces back together. Matthew took over the day-to-day operations of the business, and he did it with a new humility, a new wisdom, a new understanding of what it meant to lead, to serve, to build something that mattered. Eleanor and I spent more time together, more time talking, more time connecting, more time simply being present with each other, and we rediscovered the love that had been there all along, the love that had been buried under the weight of the business, the legacy, the name, the love that had never really gone away, just been waiting for us to find it again. Sarah was sentenced to a reduced term. Her cooperation with the prosecution and her genuine remorse factored into the judge's decision, and she wrote me a letter from prison, a long, rambling, heartfelt letter, in which she apologized, explained, begged for forgiveness, and I read the letter and I felt a profound sadness, a profound grief, a profound loss, for the daughter I had lost, the daughter I had failed, the daughter I had not been able to save. I wrote her back, a short letter, a simple letter, a letter that said, Sarah, I love you, I have always loved you, I will always love you, and I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I need to, because holding on to the anger, the bitterness, the resentment, is not who I am, is not who I want to be, is not the legacy I want to leave, and I hope that one day, when you are ready, when you are healed, when you are free, you will come home, you will come back to us, and we be a family again. I never sent that letter, not because I changed my mind, not because I did not mean it, but because I realized that Sarah needed to find her own way, her own path, her own healing, and that I could not do it for her. I could not force it, I could not control it, I could only love her, only wait for her, only hope for her, and that was enough, that was all I could do, that was all any of us could do. And now, as I sit here in my new home, the new home we built after we sold the old house with all its memories, both good and bad, I look out at the trees, the fall colors, the golden light, and I think about everything that has happened, everything that has changed, everything that has been lost and found, and I think about the 47 seconds that changed everything, the 47 seconds that brought me home, the 47 seconds that saved my family. I think about Eleanor, my wife of 47 years, the woman who has stood by me through everything, the woman who has never once given up on me, the woman who is the foundation of everything I have built, everything I have become, everything I will ever be. I think about Matthew, my son, the man who made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but who learned from them, who grew from them, who became a better man because of them. I think about Sarah, my daughter, the little girl who sat on my lap, the woman who betrayed me, the person I still love, the person I will always love, the person I am still waiting for, still hoping for, still praying for. And I think about Richard, the man who was my partner, my friend, my brother, who was consumed by hatred, by bitterness, by revenge, who threw away everything for a grudge that was not even his own, who destroyed his own life in pursuit of destroying mine. I do not hate Richard, I cannot hate Richard, I only feel pity for him, pity for the man he could have been, the life he could have lived, the love he could have had, if only he had chosen a different path. And I think about the legacy I want to leave, not a legacy of buildings and contracts and money, but a legacy of love, of forgiveness, of hope, of family. I want to leave a legacy that says, no matter what happens, no matter what challenges we face, no matter what obstacles we overcome, we are stronger together, we are better together, we are a family, and that is everything, that is the only thing that matters. If you have made it this far, if you have followed this story to its end, I want to thank you, I want to thank you for staying, for listening, for being part of this journey. I know this has been a long story, a difficult story, a painful story, but I hope it has also been a hopeful story, a redemptive story, a story that reminds you that no matter how dark things get, no matter how difficult the road ahead, no matter how many obstacles you face, there is always hope, there is always love, there is always family, and that is everything, that is the only thing that matters. So, if this story has touched you, if it has resonated with you, if it has made you feel something, please share it with someone who needs to hear it, share it with someone who is going through their own difficult time, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that they are not alone, that they are loved, that they are strong, that they can overcome anything. Please leave a comment, let me know what you think, let me know how this story has affected you, let me know if you have experienced something similar, because your story matters, your voice matters, and I want to hear it. And please, if you have not already, like this story, subscribe to this channel, because there are more stories to come, more journeys to share, more lessons to learn, and I want you to be part of them. Thank you again for staying until the end, for being part of this journey, for being part of this family. It means everything, more than you know. Until next time, take care of each other, love each other, and never, ever forget that you are not alone, that you are loved, that you are strong, that you can overcome anything. Goodbye, and God bless.